If you are thinking about moving out of the UK, especially to the UAE, for example, I would highly recommend you think about this sooner rather than later, because new UK tax rules are coming into play. October the 30th will be the new budget, and in that they have already said they will be doing something called the exit tax. Now, a lot of people have asked me a lot of questions on this, and it's something that I am picking up in my conversations that I have with new movers. There's a link in my bio if you are thinking about moving to the UAE or setting up a business. But it is something which everyone needs to know, because it's going to be horrible. Basically, what they're trying to do is tax people if they're living in the UK, tax them a little bit more. But if they want to leave, they are also going to tax you a lot more. And by that, I mean, potentially, they will be taxing you on your personal property, even businesses. It might be something called a business exit tax as well. And that will mean that on the date that you actually move, you will have to pay capital gains tax on the sale, which wouldn't actually be a sale, of your properties. So if you've got properties in your personal name, it will be as if you sold them on the date that you're moving out, and you would have to pay that capital gains tax before you actually move out of the country. And that is what the exit tax will be. Now, this can be anything from 10% all the way up to like 23, 24%. So it depends on the amount of gain that you have actually made on those properties. You still own the property. However, you don't benefit from moving out of the UK and not paying anything on any of your assets that you have in there at the moment. So if you are thinking about moving, I would highly recommend doing it before the 31st of October, because they haven't announced it yet. They don't know what the date will be. They might have it on that date, which will be very harsh, or they might have it from April 2025. However, if it's something that you're planning already, try and move that date a little bit sooner, just in case. If it means that you just need to get out of the country for a couple of weeks and use that as your moving date before the 31st of October, I would do that if you have got a lot of gain in property. But if you do need to speak to a specialist, then I do have a couple of slots still available in the UAE new company setup thing in the link in my bio. Do go and click that, and we can discuss all of this in detail if it is something that you do want to do.
Hello. So has anyone else seen this fucking pay per mile scheme thing that's been spoken about like in the October budget? Because the whole thing is absolutely wild. So the government are basically saying that you will pay a fee, a tax every single year based on how many miles you cover in your vehicle. So we already pay like road tax. I know it's not road tax anymore, but it's by the by, we already get taxed. You already pay a fortune on insurance that you get taxed on. You get taxed on the fuel that you're paying, your fuel duty. There's a tax on that. You get taxed on literally every single thing to do with your car currently, and they're like, do you know what? We'll add another one for those that cover lots of miles per year. So me as a dog walker who covers like 15,000 miles a year, I won't be able to afford that. They said like the average household, I think they've counted it as like 10,000 miles a year will be like £650 tax a year that you need to pay if you cover 10,000 miles a year, which means that I'll be what, £900 in a year just to go to work. So on top of like everything else that you have to pay, you're going to have to factor in this tax as well, just to go to work. You've got people that commute for a long time. Or what about all the people that live outside of London? As I was saying, people who live outside of London, because they can't afford to live in London and they commute to their place of work, they're going to get hefty fines now because they cover a lot of miles. It's just absolutely ridiculous. At this stage, we are living to work. We don't work to live anymore. We will be living to work. They don't want people to be on benefits, but they're also taxing people that need their car to go to work. And I know there's public transport, right? But what if somebody starts work at 4 in the morning? What if they're on night shift? How are they meant to use public transport? It's just ridiculous if you ask me.
Hey guys, Steve here. So it turns out the £1.3 billion that Cornwall Council is in debt, there's £147,000 per day interest charge. That is just absolutely ridiculous. So all of the council tax rise, most of that is going to go on paying £4 million a month interest on a 1.3 billion debt. And then we get the 1.5 million homes that is going to be built around the country by Angela Rayner, most of which is now quite common knowledge, is going to go to migrants, illegal immigrants in this country. Rather than putting them up in hotels, they're going to put them up in these new houses, which you'd think that you'd have a say. If they were going to be built near you, they should be for local people, because, you know, our children are struggling to get onto the property ladder. But they've just changed that as well. So your local council isn't going to have a say in where those homes are built. They're going to have some guy who's obviously probably based in London, being controlled by Angela Rayner, giving the nod and making sure that local councils don't have any say in where all these houses are being built. And the first 18,000, by the way, have just been commissioned to be built at the cost of £2 billion. That's for 18,000. That's for, obviously, for the land, the greenbelt land they're going to build it on, blah, 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 and all the rest of it. So to build £1.5 billion, you can do the math yourself, can't you? It's going to be an extraordinary amount of our money. None of the local people, nobody who's on the waiting list now, are going to get a chance of living in them. They're going to take people out of hotels, put them straight in new houses while they're all on benefits. Absolutely ridiculous. The only way forward is to vote reform in your local council elections coming up on May the 1st, and we can begin to change this rubbish. Let me know what you think in the comments.
You have until the 21st of April to submit on this, the 10-year budget for the Wellington City Council. And it is so important that you do, because they are cutting a lot of things that will help us reduce our pollution. I've made a 5-minute submission template that you can use to tell your councillors and to tell the City Council overall what you think about it. So the council's preferred option in this 10-year plan is to cut about $385 million worth of spending over the next 10 years. And quite a lot of that is the projects that we need to address climate change. Bus lanes, bike lanes, footpath improvements, you know, all that stuff that 2/3 of Wellington commuters use every single day. So they want to cut the funding for about half of the bike network that they promised a few years ago and extend it out so that it takes 20 years rather than 10. And then they want to only do interim improvements for the bus lanes that have already been approved and cut all funding for all new bus lanes for 10 years. 10 years! Perhaps strangest of all is that the only reason this is happening is because the council thinks that it is way too underinsured in the event of a once-in-a-thousand-year earthquake. So you'd think with these massive cuts that we solve the underinsurance problem, but we barely cover 10% of the underinsurance with these massive budget cuts. And to me, that's just not worth it. The likeliness of a climate disaster fueled by prolonging our pollution is way higher than a once-in-a-thousand-year earthquake. That is just like no-brainer to me. We should be prioritizing cutting pollution. But the only way that we can do anything about this is by submitting on it. If you want Wellington to keep cutting its pollution, you need to submit on this, and you need to do it by the 21st of April. Go and do it right now.
This is our Birmingham City Council run the city. This is Washwood East roads. It's congested because Birmingham City Council and the planning department for the highways. Look how they have messed up this. This is Washwood East Road, in between Bennett's Road and Arley Road. That's Birmingham V8. And once we got two buses, when both buses are coming from each side, the road is so tight that the two buses are not able to go past each other. And whoever introduced this has messed up this whole road, and they have now caused a chaos and congestion. And when they talk about ULEZ for Birmingham city centre, what about the lives of the people who live here? So, don't they care about the people living out of the city centre? Do they only care about the people living inside the city centre? Those millionaires who can afford those flats in their studio flats. And they have disregard for the people who live out of Birmingham city centre. Look at how it is polluting the outer side of Birmingham. Look at the congestion. And that has been caused by Birmingham City Council Planning Department, Highways Planning Department. And we the people need to be pushing our councillors for this area to do something about it, because these kind of plans are hurting the local community. So please, everybody, get in touch with your councillors and tell them to remove these lines and have the traffic free flow the way it used to be previously. Look at it now. As you can see now, it's congestion, and it's all the way to Fox and Goose, because Birmingham City Council Planning Department were not able to plan it properly. And there was no need for a bus lane here, but they introduced it so they could make more misery for the local community. And they have disregard for the local community completely.
It's with a heavy heart that we have decided to leave London and go to Bicester Village. We began our day at the apartment, which is a stunning base of operations that you can go in and just chill out before you begin your day. Oh, Mister, perfect girl. And there she is again. It was such a good place to start the day. The pastries were perfect, and it is the best iced coffee I've had in a while. And importantly, we got hands-free shopping, which meant any time we made a purchase, it would be delivered back here and we didn't have to carry it with us all day. Right, shopping. And fun fact, here lies the motivation for my most recent diet. I am the world's biggest Tom Brown fan, and there were so many incredible blazers at amazing prices, and I was too big for all of them. Ava seems very happy. She had a real shopping list, however the only thing I was determined to get was a black bag, which brings us to the agonising choice of my day. Mont Blanc briefcase or Prada crossbody bag. Look at the enthusiasm. I have to say, given my buying history, I kind of resented having to queue for Gucci. However, they obviously didn't know who I was. Maybe I should have worn some sort of sign. I must have it. I can see myself in it. I can totally... Oh, maybe I can't see myself in it. I'm Italian. This is a good Italian. The food was excellent and the service was even better. And now we come to the highlight of the day. Ava's YSL jacket. She decided to think about it. The Prada bag won out. She thought about it for like 15 seconds. Nah, look at her wee face. Look at how happy she is.
These are the reasons why I'm leaving the UK this year. So, basically, Sadiq, you want to take away my dog off me. You want to take my van off the road. You want to put prices on food, prices on car insurance, prices on everything have just skyrocketed. And then when you go and try and get a mortgage or look at it, it's like putting yourself in a prison sentence. So these are the reasons why I am leaving the UK this year. If everyone wants to follow along, and I've got to do an update video of letting people know where I'm going to be going to move. So stay in touch, people. I'll let you know what's going on. Come follow the story. I hope everyone had a good New Year. And yeah, I'll see you all soon.
If you're thinking of moving from the UK to Australia, then listen to what we have done this morning. This will blow your mind. Well, first and foremost, it's winter. Look at that blue sky. Beautiful. We're outside in t-shirts, having an iced coffee in winter. Make it make sense. However, this morning, we thought, we're going to do a little bit of food shopping. We went food shopping, and on the way back, we thought we'll quickly swing by the beach, have a little walk. Our beach is about 3 meters away from where we live. Not 3 meters, 3 minutes. However, we went down the beach and there we are, just scanning the ocean. Pod of dolphins out in the distance, load of dolphins, literally on our doorstep. We are working class, normal people. We're not rich, but we've made the move from the UK to Australia. And before midday, we'd been food shopping, seen some dolphins, been on the beach, and now we're in the garden in a t-shirt, having a nice coffee. Peace and love, people.
I moved out of London 2 months ago, and today I'm back for the very first time, and it's been emotional. Look how beautiful. Oh wait, that's just somebody's used underwear. So to remind myself why I left, I've put together a little list of reasons. First up, the rent situation. Rent, according to stats that I found from last year, has increased by 17% over the course of that year. And that is the biggest year-on-year increase since 2007, which was not a good year, but it gets worse. And these stats are from Zoopla, by the way. The average single income renter spends 48.4% of their income on rent. Final fact, the median asking rent for a 2-bedroom apartment was $2,400 compared to $1,900 pre-pandemic. Next, let's talk about weather. And annoyingly today it's good, so it doesn't illustrate my point very well. But London is very well known for its raininess. However, that's actually not strictly true. London is rainy, but some cities in Europe like Amsterdam or Moscow are on average actually far rainier, which might be surprising. However, London is very good at one bad thing, and that's not having very much sunshine. The UK in general, I think, is second only to Iceland. Sorry, just another sirens. Next up, I want to talk about commuting, which for me personally is a big issue. For a lot of sane people it's not, but I get panic attacks on the underground, and I just don't like it. I don't like being squished in there with all those people. Obviously, I have to caveat this by saying that the public transport in London and the UK in general is actually phenomenal. It's just not for me. Alright, number 4, it probably won't shock you that my next complaint is the crowds. I actually really like people, but sometimes these big cities can get really, really overwhelming. I just reached a point where I felt like I needed a break from the hustle and bustle, which is really exciting, and there is so much to do in London, and I do really miss that, all the restaurants and the events, but I feel like I need to stop and breathe, and that wasn't really possible for me in London at that point. For now, in the short to medium term, this was definitely a good choice for me. Alright, reason number 5 for why I left London, I'm sitting back down on my Nicolok, by the way, is London mentality. And what I mean by London mentality is that people aren't very warm or spontaneous. It's a general British thing, and it's not a bad thing necessarily, but for this stage of my life, I'm really craving a bit more warmth, a place that's really forthcoming, where people are really warm, friendly. Also, this is not necessarily London's fault, but a lot of my friends are starting to get married and really settle down, and it's just making them really dull and boring. Everything takes a really long time to plan. If you want to meet up with somebody, it takes weeks and weeks and weeks of planning and putting dates in diaries, and it's just not who I am. And finally, for my closing statement, I would like to mention a quote that I think a lot of you are going to mention in the comments, and that is, when a man is tired of London, a man is tired of life. Well, that quote kept me in this city for months when I probably should have left a lot sooner than I did. For a very, very long time, because of that quote, I kept myself in the belief that because I wasn't thriving in London, the fault was all my own, and that if I couldn't be happy here, I literally would never be happy anywhere else. But when you think about it, how close-minded is it to assume that one place can meet all your needs? If you want to evolve as a person, sometimes you need to make really drastic changes and really throw yourself outside your comfort zone. And me leaving London is doing that. So in a nutshell, a reminder to self, this is why I left London. This is why I left London. I do miss it though, just a little bit.